Okay, well, we'll begin. I see there are a little over 50 people on our call, so I guess in the interest of everyone's time and our schedule this afternoon, we'll begin. Um, First of all, welcome to this kickoff. Last year at this time, we were doing this kickoff virtually and said that hopefully next year we would not be doing it virtually, that we could be together. So we'll say that again, that next year we can be together and won't have to rely on this virtual media. But nevertheless, it's good for us to be able to join this way. We want to use this opportunity to provide a little more of an explanation of the ACE Mentor program in Omaha, but most importantly, to give you an introduction to what the project challenge will be for this year. So first of all, just by way of a little expanded introduction of ACE, um, our goal with this entire program is to give you students a better understanding of ACE careers, architecture, construction, and engineering. We will do this by um, working with you in teams, assigning mentors to those teams so that you will have a, excuse me, a real project-based experience and get to experience the collaboration, the communication that's required for organizing solutions to design problems in ACE challenges. I want to emphasize that the mentor teams will be multidisciplinary teams. I think that's important. The reality is that in ACE careers, collaboration is more and more important every day. It is key to the ability to design and construct facilities or renovate facilities that are sustainable and energy efficient and low carbon. It takes a multidisciplinary approach to do that. So one of the things we want to be able to hopefully share with you through this experience is an understanding that these career opportunities are very, very broad, um, and that they can be very diverse, and that working in these careers is a out of necessity a very collaborative experience. Um, we have, and maybe go to the next slide. There are this year 9 high schools participating. Benson, Omaha North, Omaha South, West Side, Papio South, Papillion La Vista, Burke, Northwest, and Bryan. Um, we may, through the course of the year, add another school or two, depending on how things go for us. And we have, so within these schools, actually, there are also multiple teams. So we'll have, I think actually now there are 15 teams of students and mentors, 3 to 4 mentors on each team, as I said, that are people that are all working in ACE professions to share with you a collaborative and multidisciplinary experience through this process. We want to emphasize the importance of our partnership with all of our partners in the industry, the schools that participate, uh, the businesses that participate, both from the standpoint of providing mentors and allowing mentors to commit time to this process. We also have a number of sponsors that contribute dollars that fund a scholarship program that we'll talk about later. So there are actually a number of sponsors that are involved in ACE, either on the front line as board members or as mentors or providing funding to the scholarship and the programs that we have. For the most part, these businesses all represent ACE ACE industry and ACE industry partners. So with that brief introduction, hopefully a little bit more explanation of ACE and what our goals are. But I want to introduce David Pinka, who will talk about the design challenge opportunities for this school year.
Thank you, Tom. So before I get going on the program for this year, I'd like to introduce Nathan Elliott of OJB. And he'll do a presentation on a very important project here in Omaha, right in the heart of downtown. Something that's long time coming, and it's going to transform Omaha for the better. So I'm going to stop presenting and give Nathan control over the presentation.
Great, thank you, David. Okay, let me get my screen going here. Get to full screen. All right, well, thank you very much for having me. I'm always, as I was saying before this call really got going, I'm always very excited to talk about this project. I've been working in Omaha on and off for the last, 4.5 years, I think, with another year and a half to go before the project's fully completed. But I'm here to talk a little bit about the riverfront. First and foremost, let me talk a little bit about myself. I'm a licensed landscape architect. I graduated with a bachelor's in landscape architect from LSU, go Tigers. And I've been practicing across the country really for the last 15 or so years, with the last 13 years of my career spent at OJB Landscape Architecture. I'm based in the San Diego office, and I've been really fortunate to spend the last really probably decade of my career working primarily on large public open space projects, which is a big focus for our firm. It requires landscape architecture is a pretty diverse discipline that is really about kind of weaving all these disparate things together into a cohesive whole. And so these projects are really fun and challenging. Working inside cities and really working to transform them and see how they change after these new public open spaces are built is really a dream job. I couldn't have imagined that I could have landed somewhere doing something quite so cool. I didn't know anything about landscape architecture when I was in high school. So hopefully this will be an informative process and show you kind of the breadth and scope of what's possible. So with that, I'm going to jump in. I typically give a speed run through most of my presentation. So I have about 40 slides and try to cover that in about 15 minutes. It should be more than enough time. I don't know if the format allows for questions, but if it does, I'd be happy to entertain some after I'm done. So this is kind of the September presentation. The Riverfront project really includes 3 parks. That's Jean Leahy Mall on the west, and then that's basically 13th to 8th, bound by Farnham and Douglas. It includes Heartland of America Park, which is basically east of 13th and goes all the way around the Heartland Lake, and it includes some improvements all the way out to the Missouri River. And then Lewis and Clark Landing. Lewis and Clark Landing is contained by the BNSF UP line on the west, and basically goes all the way to the river on the east. And inside of that project is also the Kiewit Luminarium, which you probably hear a little bit more about. The project is a project like this. It's a $300 million public open space renovation. It takes a lot of people. This is not the product of a singular genius. It takes committed owners, or I guess project sponsors would be the right way to describe them. In this case, Ken Stenson of Kiewit and Moens Bai of Valmont were really 2 pivotal people that have kept this project going. They've been assisted by a whole executive committee of folks, including HDR staff, former Parks Director, Steve Jensen, who is the planning director for the city of Omaha, local architects, people in the mayor's office, people from industry. It's been really kind of takes a village sort of effort. And so beyond those people on the client side, there's also a lot of consultants that are making this project happen. And of course, none of it would happen without Mecca. Mecca, as everyone's probably familiar with, runs the ballpark, the convention center, and the arena. With their history as a public-private partnership, they were really ideal from everyone's perspective to operate this park. This will be run as a P3, so it means that it'll be supplemented by public money, but it's really kind of a quasi-public entity. Mecca will run it very much the way they run the ballpark and other similar facilities, with their own division that's dedicated to open space. The project's being managed by HDR, with their providing a majority of the engineering services on the project. OJB is the lead designer, and then we have a whole host of folks, including architects, 2 architects, in fact, lighting designer or fountain designer, MEP engineers, audiovisual and IT engineers. We have ecologists. signage designers. There's been a branding effort. We actually have a play consultant, soil scientist. The list goes on and on and on. So there's a lot of kind of deep specialty work that the consultants bring to this process. And it's been mostly our job as landscape architect to kind of pull that all together in a cohesive vision. So I'm not going to read these to you, but all of these large projects start out working with the owner to dream big. What are we trying to do? What are the goals of this project? And that began in the master plan process. There was a public outreach effort. So really over the series of months, we worked to distill down these ideas about what was going to make these public open spaces in Omaha great. And I want to focus on the third point, and that's to make it implementable, sustainable, and maintainable. For architects, once the building is finished, generally you can take the photos and enjoy the fruits of your labor. For landscape architects, because we're working with living systems, it's a little bit more complicated. I came into this through my love of gardening, which I kind of developed later in life. And if you garden at all, you know that sometimes you have a good year, sometimes you have a bad year, sometimes there's things outside of your control. So as landscape architects, there's the effort to design and implement the project, but also after the punch walks are done and you sign off on the job, there's a labor of love that continues after that effort. And so that's been one of the things when I was a younger professional, it was something I didn't quite understand. And now, 15 years in, really one of the most important things that we do is maintain these relationships over time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of the parks. I'll show you some photos of progress construction and some renderings so you can get a sense of what's coming. Just for frame of reference, Jean Leahy Mall will open in Memorial Day weekend of next year, so the beginning of summer. And then Lewis and Clark Landing and Heartland of America will open in 2023. Right now, tentatively looking like midsummer. Those dates are subject to change. So at a high level, the idea was to have a gradient where Jean Leahy Mall is the most urban project. It's going to have the most energy and excitement from folks working in the downtown office buildings, coming from the old market, the Capitol District, visiting the Holland Performing Arts Center. So most of the intensity and a lot of program is packed into a very relatively small park area. A lot happening in Jean Leahy Mall. As you move to the east, Heartland of America is a little bit larger in scale, accommodates larger civic events. And the Lewis and Clark Landing, located north of 480, is really just going to be a destination place with a couple of focused things. And it also weaves together a few of the kind of the regional networks that I'll talk about in a few minutes. So we really kind of bifurcate Jean Leahy Mall into a west section and an east section. Really, that dividing line is effectively 10th Street. We filled in, or we are filling in, a substantial portion of the west block. If you knew the park before, it had this really lovely water feature that came in, but that water feature didn't allow a lot of use. You couldn't gather, you couldn't come together. It was a hard time meeting your friends. You'd see them across the lake, and you have to figure out how to meet up in the middle. So the goals here really to try to keep this active, exciting urban destination. So on the west side of the park, where it's relatively level, we have it's kind of anchored by a performance pavilion and an event lawn that supports about 5,000 people. There'll be a custom art installation on the west end of that'll kind of set up this really grand view, and we hope maybe one of the skyline views of downtown Omaha. To the north, south of the Holland, is a sculpture garden. So it'll be kind of crushed stone flooring, comfortable furniture, picnic tables, group seating, and also rotating art exhibits. They'll change out every so often, every 2 to 3 years, most likely. Working on the first couple of agreements now. On the southwest corner, if the sculpture garden is the kind of smaller area, a little bit more intimate, or you might spend it with a friend or a small group, the 13th and Farm, the canopies area is where you might go with a larger group. If you want to meet your friends downtown for lunch, pick up some food at the food trucks, and all gather together, go with your coworkers, or maybe even rent it out for a special event. That's where you go there, and that's here in the southwest corner. Item number 5 here, this is the Arches Playground. This is a really, really cool playground experience, multi-levels, unlike anything in Omaha. I'll show you some renderings in just a few minutes. It's one of my favorite things in Jean Leahy Mall. It's very cool. There's a park restroom that'll serve both public access on the east and then also just have family-oriented restrooms on the west, so you don't have to leave the playground with your kids. There's a big public promenade along 7th Street that centers on the existing historic arch and will provide a really important connection between the Capitol District on the north and the Old Market on the south, so linking these two pedestrian districts together. East of 10th Street, the grade starts to change. It goes down a little hill a little bit. You'll have a renovated slides experience. So the famous slides that have been downtown in Gene Lehigh Mall since its inception, they're being given new life. And immediately adjacent to that is an interactive water feature that overlooks a renovated pond. Just east of 10th Street, I'm sorry, this was 11th Street, that's the promenade. Just east of 10th Street is a boat cove. So this is sort of a gathering area with a shallower surface in the pond, so launching model boats and kind of supporting programming activities. There's a series of overlooks giving you some grand views of the lake. And at the east side, on the low end of the park, there's a series of dog parks overlooking a smaller performance space that's more suitable for events of 500 to 1,000 people. And then there's a smaller grove on the south end that really, if you want to get away from the hustle and bustle of the park and all the major activity, that's kind of where you can go to carve out a little bit of quiet time for yourself. So keep rolling through this. So this is the park as it was before. Construction had just started. You can see we've removed trees by this point in March of 2019. But again, that lake divides the park, really takes up a lot of space, and there's not really a lot of places to gather. This is an image from just a couple of weeks ago. So you can see filled in that central section, removed the bridge that went across 13th Street. This is now a laydown yard. This is the section in the foreground. You can see their performance pavilion. The lawn is starting to take shape. There's a performance pavilion, smaller canopies in this area. You can see the bones of this play structure, which you'll understand more when you see the renderings in just a moment. The sculpture garden on the left here, that's really kind of the mostly complete area. That's one of the most mature areas, including landscaping. And then you can get a kind of a sense of what's happening all the way back here to 8th Street with a view of Heartland of America in the background. So this is that sculpture garden area. So you can see there's crushed granite flooring, really to make it feel like a garden space. So it's a little different. There's this basin in the middle collects stormwater, but when it's dry, it's also kind of a fun exploration area for kids to play around in. There's bridges that cross that. You can see there's a little concrete pad here. This is one of the ones that will contain the rotating sculpture exhibits. This is an area, the photo of the canopies on the south end. These structures will have wood members hung across to provide shading, and there'll be really large, comfortable picnic tables on the lower end so groups can gather and spend time there. There'll also be some large furniture mixed in and some other seating opportunities to add a little bit of variety. And of course, we'll be planting this very heavily, trying to make it feel really enclosed and like a garden. This is a rendering of the Arches Playground. This is a really, really cool play space. We're really excited about this. You can see this is the lawn beyond. There's a lower level that steps down once you enter the playground. Below this facet deck, which is kind of a play element in and of itself, there's a rope forest and some other play elements hidden below this that kids can occupy. This is full of seating, so parents, caregivers, family all have comfortable places to sit while kids enjoy the playground. And then there's a series of custom designed arch play structures that have, they're really large structures. They're 25 to 30 feet tall. They're 60 to 70 feet long. There's going to be 3 of them. One of them is geared for smaller children, 2 of them geared for larger kids in the 5 to 12 age range. And they'll have a variety of different kind of play experiences on the inside. This is generally from that same area. You can see here, this is some of that caregiver seating that I was talking about. You can see the steel beams of the facet taking place, and then the arches will fly over this. We actually expect that the arches will be installed probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks, which is really going to kind of, I think, dial up the excitement and really help people understand what's going on the playground. This is that restroom building that I was talking about. Again, it's a very simple building, but because structures are limited in the park, in addition to being the kind of comfort station for the park, it also controls a lot of this vital infrastructure. So to support all this activity, this park is full of conduit, electrical conductor, lighting, audiovisual equipment, power, all these things. So we have to have places to integrate that all throughout the project. So the series of structures we have throughout the park really where we keep all that vital infrastructure enclosed and safe. There's also a signature performance pavilion in the center of the project. It's designed to accommodate a group as large as the Omaha Symphony, but also can support any range of concerts, small and large. It'll have the ability to hang rigging and speakers for really big events, so you can have like full professional lighting and sound equipment. But it also works if you just want to plug in an amp and somebody play guitar during a Friday lunch. You can see here, if you've driven by the park, you've probably seen this structure. It'll be covered in a perforated metal panel that'll really give it that kind of character, and it'll be lit dramatically from inside and out. But the panels are anticipated to go up over the winter, and they're just now starting to work on the plaza around that. So it's really starting to come into focus and to see how that space is going to be shaped. If you've been to Gene Leahy Mall at all in the past, you'll be familiar with the downtown slides, which is kind of an iconic thing. If you grew up for the adults in the call, you might have taken your kids here or played here yourself as a child. So we're dialing up the fun at the slides. That includes restoring the slides as they were, kind of bringing them back to life, and then adding a series of additional slide elements which haven't been installed yet. But these limestone blocks are used as both seating, but also they're a scramble, so they create play loops. So kids can go down the slides, they can kind of climb up all these blocks, occupy the space, play with their friends, and then all that is done in the shade of these large mature maple trees which we've installed. This is another kind of seating area that's at the base of the slide. So then there's a comfortable place for parents and caregivers to hang out. And also, if there's a concert or a special event in the park, this is going to be a great place to have a small kids-oriented kind of focus, whether that's a presentation or music or something like that. That Cascade Fountain, this is kind of just north of the slides. You can see the slides just in the limit here on the west. So this is a series of step terraces, again, taking up that grade transition as we're shaping the earth as you come down from the 11th Street Promenade. And each one of these is kind of overflowing with water. The water will change and cycle and activate and become different intensities throughout the day. So it's always kind of surging and sparkling and doing something exciting. You can see these kids are playing in a very thin membrane of water. And so they'll just be able to splash around. So even when you turn it off in the wintertime, it's still an interesting composition, and it's something you can occupy, sit on, and hang out. You can see here, this is just a long view across the park. This is a pretty complicated structure. There's a lot of complexity in this concrete formwork. You can see there's a ton of rebar in here, so lots of collaboration with the engineers, working very closely with the fountain designers to make sure this is all executed really, really well. This is the renovated pond, where you can see we're taking the orange historic posts lights that were kind of a feature of Gene Leahy Mall and reorganizing those to become this feature element around the water. And then you can see this is the boat cove area here with this kind of stepping stone pad that goes across the edge. This area is really coming together more than most. It's really starting to take shape. You can even see there's going to be, we've planted some trees on this upper terrace. What's still coming is this amphitheater seating. So there'll be a series of kind of lounge seats and bleachers. They'll make this really kind of almost like a stadium area, so you can focus on just watching the action as people use the park and enjoy having a good time. And then on the east side, we have this very long connection. This public promenade leads on to Heartland of America Park, but takes you past. This will be the dog parks and other areas just on the left, out of frame. We're doing our darndest to try to screen this existing parking garage here on the right side, so that when you're in the park, it really feels like an oasis from the city. So Heartland of America, you can see here, I'm going to try to go through this. I think I probably spent a little too much time on Gene Leahy Mall, but that public promenade terminates in a plaza. That plaza overlooks a major event lawn, which will support kind of really large concerts. This is the place that you'd go to watch fireworks on the 4th of July or on New Year's Eve. This is where something, we're crossing our fingers that Taste of Omaha, or maybe an event like Maha might come and try to use this. So we've really been focused on how can we integrate the kinds of infrastructure and access needed to support really big civic scale events, because Omaha doesn't have a lot of those places in the center of the city to gather. So we wanted to make this that kind of destination. On the north side, there'll be a kind of a fun terrace with bocce courts, comfortable furniture, fire pits, barbecue grills. So this is a place you come hang out on a Saturday, even when there's not something going on. And then throughout the year, this is the skate ribbon. In the summertime, you could come here and roller skate or ride your scooter. In the wintertime, they'll be setting it up as an ice sheet. And so this is a really fun place for kids to hang out, and people from all over Omaha to come over and spend their time. There's a new promenade that will lead out to this pier overlooking the river. And then as you go south to this edge, there's a series of other public spaces. There's a series of gardens, a smaller amphitheater that supports kind of mid-size events. We're recreating a little bit of a boat dock. If you're familiar with the gondola rides, we're hoping that's going to come back to Heartland of America. And then on the south end here, there's a small playground and a series of other kind of terraces and public spaces that lead you down that connect back to the Conagra campus. So we're able to close that loop that so many people like to walk around in the spring and the summer when the weather's great in Omaha, and get some exercise and just be outside. These projects are a little bit, they only started really earlier this year, so there's a little less progress, but you can see this is Heartland of America Park in August of 2019. You can see the construction in Jean Leahy Mall was really already underway at this point. But you'll note that the pond, Heartland America Lake, really comes in all the way up here. And so part of making this really large public park was closing off that space, filling it in. We're building a new lake edge over here. On this image, you can see these, this is the beginning of the bones of the new ice rink, was that really big concrete foundation, so it stays really crisp and really level for a really long time. You can see we're adding this, the road construction for Heartland of America Park. And this is really just getting going. Lots more to come in Heartland. And then just kind of that overall view of what the park is going to be like with the big event lawn looking out of the river, and then this pier structure, which is really, I think, going to be one of the icons of the riverfront. You can see the skate ribbon. It's going to have this really cool custom lighting setup, which includes a linear LED that'll track with the direction that the skaters are supposed to be moving on the course. In addition to having this kind of ribbon where you can circulate on the exterior, there's also going to be some kind of interior rink spaces, and those rinks are where you might go to practice tricks, work on your skating, do a routine or something like that. And there's plenty of seating all around. You can get up to the rail, watch the action, and there's just kind of amenities and kind of seats galore around the perimeter for folks that want to watch the action. So really just starting to come up out of the ground. Utilities for the buildings, one of the first thing that we've been installing, really getting this structure for the ice ribbon going in. And then, really trying to reconstruct this lake edge again, because we'll be working all the way through 2022 and opening in 2023. There's still a lot of work to be done. Hopefully we're going to have a mild winter and be able to get even more done this year and be a little bit ahead of the clock starting in the spring of next. You can see here just starting to do some of the work to get these early areas. We're going to start in that very far southeast corner, and Kiewit, who's building the project, is going to work their way all the way out to the center of the park. Finally, I'll talk about Lewis and Clark Landing. Again, this is on the other side of 480, and it becomes kind of a destination in its own right. While there are some connections, including a pedestrian bridge over, we are realigning that extension. Dodge Street will no longer come through, but instead, the Douglas Street extension will now connect to Riverfront Drive. So slightly realigning the roadway, which involved a lot of civil engineering work, a lot of other folks doing infrastructure engineering. But then we're providing a new destination playground, which has its own parking area, unrivaled plaza, bathrooms, and then a whole bunch of really exciting play experiences. Again, kind of one of a kind for not just Omaha, but I think the state of Nebraska. It's going to be really cool. And then from the plaza, you can go into the Kiewit Luminarium, but you can also go into, there's going to be a new urban beach that's going to be here against the flood wall. There's a large plaza for additional kind of public events and activation, fairs, things like that. And then what's really cool is we're providing an NCAA rated sand volleyball area. And that includes a small event lawn for performances. And then we're working, it's not been approved yet, but there's some other kind of recreational amenities that we're trying to work into this lawn that's behind the flood wall on the very far north end. There's whole area here to the west, which is the north of the plan. This was just grass. We're taking out all the grass, and we're going back with native prairie plants, and we're working on adding some interactive paths through that. So you really be able to get away, walk into this garden, and really feel like you're just really in part of the prairie and in a more wild place, even though you're really in the center of Omaha. Again, this is from October of last year. Really, there wasn't quite that much going on out there. If you're not familiar with this area, is the former Asarco lead smelting plant, so it's really constrained on what was able to be done there. But they're starting to build, you can see here on the left, the luminarium. Really, this is going to start going in really full speed in 2022. But the playground, like I was talking about, playground features a number of iconic custom structures that are both kind of the icons of the park, but also you can see these kids inside. There's a whole bunch of different levels, all kinds of different play experiences, and then you can go climb your way to the top, slide back down, and then come scramble over this series of stacked stone blocks, which have interactive water and sand play elements throughout. And then if you haven't heard about the Luminarium, I suspect you will later in this program. It's a really exciting science, technology, engineering, and mathematics educational center modeled after the Exploratorium in San Francisco. So lots of really cool opportunities, lots of things to learn in this building, in the space, and it's going to be an incredible structure in and of its own right. You can see here, it'll be dramatically lit from the riverfront, and you'll be able to see the downtown skyline in the background. So the luminarium is plugging along. They got the structural steel up. It's really fun. I, as a principal, actually don't get to spend this much time typically working on the construction projects, which is really how I cut my teeth in my early years of my career. So it's very exciting and gratifying for me to come to Omaha. I'm here every other week through the construction season, through shoulder season, and I get to watch this all come together, which is really one of the best and most satisfying parts of any AEC project, as I'm sure your sponsors will tell you. So with that, that's kind of a very brief overview. I could talk for hours about this project, but I know time is precious, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak about this today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Nathan. That was incredible. It's a very exciting project. Having grown up in Omaha, I'm super excited, and I hope that those that are participating in this presentation are as equally as excited. I can't see why they wouldn't be. I'm going to jump back into our presentation. If you haven't already realized, the project is centered around the project that was just presented. So it's the Gene Leahy Mall, Lewis and Clark Landing, Kiewit Luminarium. So the first semester we'll dive right into the Kiewit Luminarium and do an exhibit. And you'll get more information on each one of these as an overview. The second semester, there's 3 options. And these will be in the Gene Leahy Mall area. One's a rock out and retreat. The other option would be a food and frolic. And then option 3 is the 2022 National CERT competition. This is a competition that's unveiled. It's outside of the what we put together. It's a national competition that high school students are invited to every year. The program changes, and I'll go into that in more depth as we get through this presentation. So with that, I'm going to introduce Michael Sharp of Lamprey Nearson. He will go over the first semester project.
Well, hello. Thank you, David. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right still. If you want to go to the next slide there, David. So you just had that wonderful presentation from Nathan. And again, thank you for that, Nathan. It was awesome. And it obviously is a very exciting project. So I guess if we have any juniors or seniors that participated last year, you'd remember that the fall project, it was the park and the truck, and it was pretty simple, had a really quick timeline. And we're looking to do basically the same type of setup this year. We'll have a little bit of a shorter window. Obviously, we'll have October and in November, and basically look to do a presentation right before finals week. And so the main objectives are to get the students introduced to the design and construction process with this simple short project, and then transition into a larger project after the holiday break that Kenny's going to speak to here in a little bit as well. So you can see here from the slide up on the screen, the biggest thing is we want the students to really try to be creative. We want you to be thinking outside of the box based on the parameters that we're going to give you. Brainstorm, work together as a team. You know, what does it mean to design something together with a bunch of different voices and points of view? We're looking for those leadership qualities. We're looking to get everyone fully engaged, to everyone pull their own weight, add your own thoughts, really get involved. We want you to we want to focus on the understanding the process of how to make the decisions together, and be able to explain and articulate why you made those choices. So when it comes time to present what you do right before the holiday break, those are some of the things we'll be looking for. And then of course there is just simply the opportunity to present your project. And many professionals will tell you you can have an awesome design, an awesome project, great renderings, models, and visuals, but you need to be able to also describe that and articulate that for others so they can completely understand the wonderful things that you guys put together. So with that, as you can see here from the slide, and again, just the overall context, you see the Lewis and Clark Landing area. And what we're looking to do is an interactive exhibit for the luminarium. And we're looking to really focus on the significance of that area in itself. And we'll provide 2 different paths to basically create a 10-foot by 10-foot by 10-foot cube exhibit that really goes down either like a cultural path or an ecological path. And the exhibits themselves could be they could be, again, STEM focused. They could be, meant to be fully housed inside the luminarium, or they could be even outdoors as well. Some of those examples, and as you saw in Nathan's presentation, there are a lot of different. There you go. So there was a lot. Basically the some of the different examples we were looking to hopefully trying to draw inspiration on a lot of the surrounding amenities that you see there, whether it's the destination play area, the riverfront event plaza, the urban beach, the lawn area. Some of those items could probably be classified and fit under the cultural category, whether you're looking at the historical residents, people who inhabited the area, different uses and events that go on. And again, it could also go down the ecological pathway. It could be looking at the geology, the river, the habitat, looking at sustainability and biology and the environmental factors. And so maybe that focuses a little bit more on the prairie gardens and the marina and the riverfront promenade. And so what do those, what kind of exhibits are we, thinking about? Just some different possible ideas. I mean, that could be playground equipment. It could be an interactive bench or table. It could be an informative kiosk or some sort of signage or trail marker. Maybe it's something that complements the scenic overlook of the river. It could be something that's like in an outdoor classroom. Again, the ecological sense, it could be, maybe it's habitat for a birdhouse or some sort of pollinator garden. Again, going with the STEM theme, maybe it's looking at energy and power usage, whether that's solar, wind, and water. So just we want the students to be very creative, open-minded. There's certainly a lot of different avenues that we could try to present. If you jump back real quick, David, back to the sorry, real quick. In terms just to wrap up. Again, the size 10-foot, 10-foot cube, that could be flexible, obviously, but we would want the students to look at the cost. So we want you to go through the exercise of developing a budget and really putting some thought towards what it would take to actually build that. And then you'd have the option to create a mock-up for part of your exhibit, whatever you choose to do, whether that's, a 3D model out of cardboard, a Revit SketchUp model, any kind of renderings or something like that. But that's definitely an option to explore. And so what we don't have listed on here, and our teachers and the students and the mentors will all work together here, is in terms of trying to figure out that schedule and that timeline about when you'll actually present. And I think ideally we'd be doing that right before your finals week and right before the holiday break. But again, presentation, it's definitely an important factor as well. So we want to, ideally, we would basically want to leave it open to all of the different teams and all the different schools and how you want to do that, whether that's PowerPoint, providing some site plans or some models, making a video or doing just different renderings. We really want to leave that open-ended for the students and teachers and different mentor teams to provide something come presentation time. So with that, I believe that's it. Stuart, do you have any comments? Anyone else? And otherwise, if not, we just jump over probably to the fall project
Perfect.
that Kenny has. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was very, very well done. So this first semester, aligning with the Luminarium, we will also have the presentation by HDR. They'll host a design presentation discussing the design, engineering, and the construction coordination of the Luminarium project. As well, there will be a construction site visit this fall so that students will have a firsthand experience looking and seeing all these different coordination items from structure to mechanical, everything that goes into, and the civil that also goes into the construction, talking with the general contractors and getting an understanding of all that is involved in the construction process. So that should be a great opportunity that HDR and Kiewit are providing this fall, and it aligns with this really, really cool project that's going to be on the riverfront. And with that, Kenny Okebo will introduce, he's with RDG Planning and Design, the second semester project.
Great, thank you for that, David. So from the presentation that Nathan gave, we're really excited about what this project during the second semester when we start up in January is going to look like. We'll be specifically looking at the Jean Leahy Mall, so exactly what Nathan was talking about. And as he mentioned, it was a multi-year process, which is still going on, and parts of the park won't be open until 2023. So we're not going to ask you to design that whole thing. If we transition to the next slide, you'll see how we've started to break this up into a few different options for you. So our students will break into teams, and they'll have the option between 3 different projects. The first project is going to be what we're calling Rockstar and Retreat. That's the sections which are 4 and 6 noted in front of you. So that's the pavilion, and then also that public gathering space, that open lawn, which is noted with the number 4 over there. And what we're specifically asking is that you are designing a pavilion, a public plaza, and then a flexible lawn space, which is going to act as an audience space for that pavilion. Special consideration is going to go toward ADA, so that's the American Disabilities Act guidance, and then also view angles and sound design as you're thinking about how that pavilion can work in an urban setting. The second project that you have the option of choosing is what we're calling, before I talk about the second project, sorry about that, David. If we jump back to the second slide for project 1, I just wanted to throw in a few examples of how to frame what this space can look like. You were able to see examples from Nathan's presentation of what the space is going to look like, but we don't want to restrict you or hold you back or put any chains on your creative process. It can look like anything. So we placed these ideas of what some of the other projects around the Midwest that thematically are similar look like. And bear in mind that the sky is the limit. We still want this to be a feasible final solution, but just because we're adding feasibility and cost considerations into the project does not mean that we're stifling creativity. So we encourage you to take this to the nth degree. Thank you for that, David. The second project that you have the option of working on is what we're calling Food and Frolic. So sections 5 and 15 on the south end of the mall are where we're asking you to design one concession structure, but then also design a playground space. And within that playground space, we're asking you to detail out one of those play structures. So you were able to see from Nathan's presentation what that might look like and how much work actually goes into designing the structure behind some of these play features that we use pretty frequently. Special consideration is still going to go toward ADA guidance, just making sure that anybody at varying levels of accessibility is able to move through and use the space similarly to how you might walk through it. So that's consideration for individuals using crutches, wheelchairs, anything, just making sure that all people are welcome into the space. Thinking about buffers and adjacent streets is also going to be a key consideration. You probably noticed that the work that OJB has done, they've separated the street from the play space using plant material as a buffer. That's just a smart strategy of how to make sure that the families and children that are going to be using this space are going to stay safe. And that's something we want to make sure that you think about too. If we jump to the next slide, we'll be able to see some examples of what we could do here. So we talked about that concessions building and what that might look like. Feel free to take that to the nth degree, being as creative as you can be. We also talked about the play structures that you'll find there. On the top right, you'll see something that's a bit less natural in form, something that's more structured steel and synthetic materials. But then on the bottom left, you'll see the complete juxtaposition to that, or the opposite of that, where adults and children are playing on more natural forms. You're the designers on this, so we're looking to you to find what you think fits best in this space and design to that. Your mentors and teachers are looking forward to helping you and guiding you along that process, but we're really excited about the ideas that you come up with throughout the year. The third project that you have the option of choosing is actually going to be the CIRT competition. And not to make it confusing for you, but within that third project, CIRT, gave the option of 3 different projects. So you'll need to have a decision by January of if you're going to proceed with this, because registration, I believe, for the national competition closes around January 22nd. But what's interesting about this is within urban renewal, so finding a new definition of the urban fabric with the memorial of the future, so thinking about how memorial spaces will act in the future, and then the strong and sustainable option. These are 3 completely different projects where you'll be judged against students from around the country based on feasibility, constructability, cost factors, the design that you put into it. And I believe that at least one of our schools from our ACE affiliate in Omaha actually placed in the top 5 last year. So I'm looking forward to us doing very well in the coming year. With that, I just want to say again, I'm really excited for this year and can't wait for what we end up doing.
Thank you, Kenny. So yeah, a lot of options this year. Very exciting projects on the horizon here. So I'll go quickly through the timeline. Starting October 4th, next week, we'll have mentors available for students. We'll do some introductions, start going through what the project in more depth of the Luminarium exhibit will be. And then every 2 weeks, you'll have a work session. Mid-November, going to the Luminarium and having a presentation and a construction site visit. Wrapping up into the winter break, we'll wrap up the exhibit project and have a formal presentation to close out that project. And coming back from winter break, we'll jump right into the second semester project intro, make some decisions of which project of those options you want to pursue, and have some more mentor work sessions coming into March 7th. We'll do a mid-critique, kind of a snapshot in time of where you're at with your project, and do a presentation right before spring break. After spring, actually in the middle of spring break, is when the cert competition deadline is. So those that are doing that optional national competition, you'll have crunch time right before spring break and be able to enjoy it, and knowing that you've met your deadline. So then after spring break, there will be some more work sessions to go through the other option 1 and 2 of the Jean Leahy Mall project, gearing up into May 16th, where there will be you'll kind of finalize your presentation, and then April 28th will be the project showcase. And so actually, I think, yep. So I need to revise this a little bit. And I'll send a revised timeline once everything is finalized with the proper dates. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jan Christensen to talk about scholarships and take us here to the end of the presentation.
Okay, thanks, David. Welcome, everybody, and thanks, everybody, for joining. It's so nice to see so many of you here, and I'm just going to wrap up a little bit. David talked pretty much through what we're going to do through the second semester in terms of what you're going to be doing with your mentors. But students that are on here and mentors that are on here, please always keep in mind there are 2 things that we really want to make certain that we do. We look at scholarships for our students and get as many students applying for scholarships. There are a lot of scholarship opportunities out there this year. And so we want to make certain that our students have all of the opportunities that they can. I want to remind you that our scholarships are for any school that you're attending within a 250-mile radius of Omaha. But for if you're looking to go to the University of Nebraska system, whether it be UNL or UNO, there will be another whole pot of scholarships, hopefully, that we can get you involved in. With that, we're also going to try to place in here somewhere, because it looks like there's a lot of things happening this year, but we also want to give the students the opportunity to go to UNL and see what they have to offer, because really part of it is, we're not saying that that's where you have to attend, but we always want to look at what might be your best options. And a lot of times students don't look at the options that are right in front of them. And so we want to make certain that you are aware of all of the possibilities that you might have, whether it be on the UNL campus or the UNO campus. We want to make certain that you understand your possibilities there. In addition to that, last year we put 8 students into internships. We call them summer experiences. They're kind of like an internship. They were paid. They were 80 hours of payment at $1,200. And those students got to look at 3 different options or 4 different options of different ACE-related businesses and industry partners. So it's a great opportunity for our students to see maybe students that thought maybe they wanted to be civil engineers were flipping and becoming architectural engineers, and vice versa to that. So it's an interesting thing that a lot of students think they know what they want to be, and then when they actually go in and see that experience and work hand in hand with our mentors, they get a really different look at what's actually happening for them. So with that, I would really like to thank Nathan Elliott for being with us today. Nathan, your presentation by OJ was just so overwhelming. I'm so excited this year. I think the one thing that's so exciting is this, for students, we really right now have a really blank canvas, and all of our mentors are saying, design what you really want to do. Don't necessarily look at what's happening, but know also that these are some of the things that architects have been working a long time and to design, but what can you do to make it even more creative, and how might you look at that? The Luminarium is going to be an awesome opportunity, and we're excited about that as well. We divided it up into 2 semesters because last year we found that really worked pretty well. And so we're hopeful that you'll see that to be kind of the same way this year as well. To the committee that really worked on this education program for us, David Panka, Mike Sharp, Kenny, and I don't know how to pronounce your last name quite right, but I think it's Akabo, and several others that were, Milena was there with us, Rob Worley was with us. All of you that really helped to put this program together, thank you for doing that. And I'm sure David Panka is thanking you as well, because David, the last 2 years, has kind of shouldered this by himself. And a lot of our mentors have really stepped forward and said, I'll help with it as much as I can as well. So thank you for doing that. I think you're going to find that what they are putting together for you is going to be a great opportunity. We will also say that this year could look a little different for us. I mean, last year we were all virtual. This year we're absolutely in hope that we can do a hybrid model. Nationally, a lot of the schools are not actually starting. Our affiliates aren't actually starting to January because of all of the things happening with COVID. But because we live here and because our schools are operating and they're operating in person, we get the opportunity, hopefully, to do that. We will be doing kind of a hybrid model of that. And so all of our mentors will be able to go in person, but we will also have that virtual option as well, because we have also found that worked really well last year for a lot of our mentors. And so we want to continue to provide that option for them as well. To all of our mentors out there, and there are a lot of you online with me today, thank you so much. For those of you that really don't know how the program works, these mentors go into our schools 16 different times with these students, with a team of mentors in an architecture, construction, and engineering, one from each one of those disciplines. So we are very fortunate. This year we have about 65 mentors who are signed up that will be going in and working with our students. I'm from the education realm. I was an educator for a long time, now over almost 50 years in education. I can tell you, bar none, it is one of the best learning, project-based workforce development things that I've ever seen in place. So I'm proud to be a part of this program. I'm thankful that our students have this opportunity. And I just want to thank everybody that's online with us tonight. There are a lot of students with us as well. Students, you just need to know lots of opportunities for you there. Please soak up as much as you can. Utilize our mentors for shadowing experiences, internship experiences. Ask them to do guest speaking. Have them help you get into post-secondary opportunities. They all know that that's one of the purposes for being here in this program as well. So for all of you that are out there, and there are very, very many students and mentors, I'm excited for this year's project. Again, thanks David, Mike, Kenny, and Nathan for all you did for tonight's presentation. Tom, thank you always for your leadership for the ACE Mentor program as the president of this. And Mike McBeacon, I know you're on as well. Thank you for thinking about this back in 2016 and bringing this to everybody. And I know that Dean Perez from the College of Engineering is on with us tonight also. So he's excited to take advantage of all of the students that are participating. My thanks to you. And David, if there's nothing else, I think this presentation is adjourned. Thanks so much.